the Melvins very soon. Very exciting. And he teaches a class on fun at the University of Colorado Denver, correct? Fun. He teaches a class on fun. It's ridiculous. All right. No further ado, here's Andrew.
I'm excited to tell you a little bit about quantum physics. This is going to be an easy audience. Everyone's not excited about quantum physics. This is a laser, see? It's physics. Maybe the clicker doesn't work. Which way am I playing it? Okay. All right. So you can't really start talking about quantum physics before you talk about Heisenberg. Everyone knows Heisenberg, right? Breaking Bad, Walter White. But before him, there was actually another Heisenberg, Werner Heisenberg, and you may have heard about the Heisenberg uncertainty principle, and that was 1925. We got fans of principles even. This is like awesome. And a groundbreaker in quantum physics. After Niels Bohr and Einstein started the wave. But he was really talking about the more you know about some particle, the less you know about it in some other way. So for instance, if you know the speed and the direction, then you know less about the position. And also when you observe something, you change it. So hence the paradox of quantum physics. It's talked about a lot. Schrodinger's maybe not talked about as much except for Schrödinger's cat, but he was famous at the exact same time, and the Schrödinger wave equation was actually, I would say, much more groundbreaking than Heisenberg, in the sense that he actually came up with an equation that describes the quantum states of some particle in almost every way possible. So it's actually pretty impressive, this psi equation. And I know sometimes people get really scared of equations. I don't want to put up an equation because like people will just like shut down or like curl up in a ball or like go get buy a beer or something. But at the risk of all that. There it is, Schrödinger's equation. We're all still alive and hopefully it's still awake. So I'm not really going to talk about it. The purpose of this talk is not to talk about the equation per se, but I will point out a few superstars. This is psi when you hear about it. Planck's constant. I is an imaginary number, which, like, if you ever do math, imaginary numbers like fuck shit up for sure. But the cool thing about this, I mean, this was much more complex than Heisenberg. It really defines everything about a physical system or a particle, from classical mechanics all the way till special relativity. And although he wasn't even using it for special relativity, those, basically later as special relativity was thought about. It actually still fit his equation, so it was like he was, not like Einstein, he's actually kind of thinking ahead of himself. So quantum superposition is a particle can actually be in more than one state at a time. That's as per defined in the equation. So the question is like, can it be? can something be in multiple states at a time? And if so, like, how could you observe that? And as Heisenberg states, if you observe it, you actually change it. So if you're observing something, if you could observe something in multiple states, you're changing it anyhow, so what are you actually observing? So the whole thing is you have a particle in whatever state or multiple states, but you can't observe it. So it's called a superposition state. And the properties of the particle in that state are they actually fit the equation. So it actually is its own state. It's a state that is something that's in multiple states at the same time. So, if you observe it, it actually forces it into one, say there's two possible states in this superposition. If you observe it, it actually forces it into a random one of those two states. So you're kind of almost like picking, it's like picking a card. You're actually forcing it into one of the states by observing it, but then you still didn't really know, I mean, you actually made it go into that state by observing it, so you really didn't know anything. You know as much as you did when you had, before you observed it, basically. So he wanted to come up with this paradox, and he wanted to come up with this thought experiment based on this article. It's called the APR articles, Einstein and some others. We're talking about superposition and applying those to classical mechanics. They were saying, yes, superposition, like a barrel of unstable gunpowder, is because it could blow up at any time randomly. That barrel of gunpowder is in a superposition state where it's both exploding and not exploding at the same time. And so Schrödinger was like, that's BS, Einstein and others. And so, which is bold also, right? It's like, how do you refute Einstein? Because, he's right about everything. So, but he was like, and he's the one who came up with the equation that's explaining this. But he was like, you can't apply these quantum things to classical mechanics. And so he came up with this paradox experiment, which was the cat in the box. And so he had to have some kind of random factor at play, because the whole thing is that it has to be an unknown state. And so what he did is he took the radioactive decay of some atom, and there's a Geiger counter inside this box. And so if the atom decays, the Geiger counter will measure it, and then it will break a flask of poison and kill the cat. And so while this is closed, behind closed doors, this is closed experiment, and it's at some random time, or not, but at some random time it could kill the cat. But you don't know because you can't see inside the box. So what that means is the cat is both alive and dead at the same time. which is kind of ludicrous, right? And that was Schrödinger's point. Which is something a lot of people don't know. They're like, this guy's a genius. He came up with this awesome analogy about how a cat's both alive and dead. And as classical systems, as humans, we know that a cat can't be alive and dead. So we're like, oh yeah, that was kind of ludicrous. And same with the gunpowder. This whole idea of superposition. So who is this guy who he wants to kill a cat in the box? Anyhow, Erwin Schrödinger. Is he a genius or is he totally crazy? It's like, what kind of mind comes up with this crazy experiment? So something that's not really talked about, which I wanted to bring up in this talk, what about the cat? Does anyone care what the cat thinks? He's in the box, for God's sake. And so, you think Einstein, Einstein had some criticism of Schrödinger's analogies and how the cat in the box actually is a fine example of superposition. But you think Einstein in relativity, he would have pointed out that if you can look at it from the frame of reference of the cat, that's actually a whole different frame of reference for this experiment that actually could be pretty interesting.
Yeah.
The cat was a conscious observer. So now let's look at it from the point of view of the cat. right? Like you're in this box, it's dark in there, you don't know what's going on. This radioactive thing may or may not kill you, so like what is the cat thinking about? Or is he just like licking his paws, you know? He's like, I don't care, this guy put me in a box, I don't know. But then it happens. Dead. So, the cats. Don't they have 9 lives? 9 lives. Well, I'm sure Schrödinger did this many times. So, the cats, the 9th one, he's like, well, I think I got a general gist of the whole thing. So, yeah, it's kind of like, if there's a cat in a box in the forest, does anyone know? A tree fell on him, you know? But yeah, because maybe, you know, if the cat is a relativistic observer, but like he's not going to tell you anyhow. Like he knows, but then he's dead. So your one witness of the whole experiment can't really tell you anything. Some interesting things. You know, I work at the National Institute of Standards and Technology. Yeah, here it is. And you know, things going on at NIST are very interesting. And since Schrödinger, actually, a lot of, that's why the cat in the box is so interesting, is because as new discoveries are made, they keep using that paradox in that example. So that's why, and they know pop culture gets hold of it in memes and the web, and it's just like it has a mind of its own. But has anyone heard of quantum teleportation? Yeah. So check this out. Beam out of here. So quantum teleportation is actually a real thing where it's not actually this real thing. You're not actually beaming a particle from one place to another. But what it is that there's particles that are entangled with other particles, and so the state of one particle is actually reflected in another particle somewhere else. It could be on the other side of the globe, which is mind-blowing. So quantum teleportation, is super powerful in the sense of learning about quantum physics. So if you have this, say the cat is the particle in question, you can't observe it because you're going to change the experiment, right? But what if the cat is entangled with some other cat that's somewhere else, like enjoying himself? And he's like, yeah, my brother's stuck in some box somewhere. I'm on the beach. I got the world's biggest litter box. But if these two are entangled, we can actually observe this cat by seeing the state of this cat, which, sorry for him, if this state is really teleported him, and we're going to watch him die outside of the box. So, sorry, Charlie. A little bit of like the pop culture, Schrödinger's cat's really fascinating. And I think, it's pop culture. So things like, is the cat alive or dead? Or is he in this state where he's alive and dead at the same time? So artists and people are like trying to portray something that's like in two different classical physics states, so it's just pretty cool. Oh no, what did I do? Oh, damn.
That's 9 lives.
Sarah!
9 lives, oh, they were, okay. I did something crazy. Here's a good one. So Schrödinger's cat is alive, dead, alive. This guy was serious about Schrödinger. Lifelong commitment there. The cat will forever be alive and dead. Don't go in there! Cats? If cats ever got wise to this, they might be able to avoid it. But also, in artwork and the idea of the paradox, but it's actually, there's other analogies where, so take for instance the CIA and the Glomar Explorer, where they had to neither confirm nor deny the existence of this information. And hypothetically, if there were such data to exist, the subject matter would be classified, and we couldn't disclose it. This is Schrödinger's cat, exactly. Oh, that's amazing.
Who's in the box? Who's in the box?
But I've always thought about, like, what about an art installation that's a cat, the Schrödinger's cat paradox as an art installation somehow. And so I've thought about it for years and years, like different ways to like reflect somehow this cool paradox. So I thought, you know, what's in the box? 7! Has anyone seen 7? You know what's in there? The 7 deadly sins. So, so my analogy is going to be 8. And curiosity is the 8th deadly sin. So you have to decide. So we got this box, and you're going to have to decide if you want to look in the box or not. So would you do it? Let's open it up, see what happens. Oh, he's all right. Yay. So the idea of this box, so I would really have, like, you have different states, it would reset itself, so automatically the next person looks in the box, it has a random outcome. So if we try it again,